She's 23 years old. She came here from the Ukraine. Now, she flees the Ukraine war that's going on and comes to the United States. So you would think right away the Democrats would embrace her and love this woman because she's Ukrainian. They're all pro-Ukraine. If something had happened to her in Ukraine and the Russians killed her, they'd be putting her face on a poster, and they would want justice for what happened. But since she was murdered here in the United States by a career criminal, the Democrats are nowhere to be found on this story. You won't see the story on MSNBC or on CNN. You won't hear it from the Democrats or Republicans that are waving the Ukraine flag constantly in our nation's capital. Where's all the support for the Ukrainian people? Here is a 23-year-old Ukraine woman murdered on a train just last week in Charlotte. You didn't see anything about it. Why? Because the animal who murdered her, Decarlos Brown, has prior arrests and was released with, you guessed it, no cash bail, allowed right back out onto the streets. Now, with this guy, multiple offender, career criminal, as usual, this usual suspect, career criminal that no one, no big deal. Just let him back out on the street. The last time this guy was arrested is in January. And listen to how crazy this person is that they let back out onto the street. In January, Decarlos Brown was arrested for misuse of a 911 system. Sounds kind of silly, right? The court records say that Brown called 911 from a hospital and claimed that someone gave him man-made material that was controlling what he ate, walked, and talked. He was not satisfied with the officer's response, saying that it was a medical issue. There was nothing they could do. Police said Brown continued to call 911, and then he was criminally charged. The judge, Teresa Stokes, allowed him to be released from jail without paying anything on a written promise to appear. Well, guess what? He didn't appear. He murdered this woman on a train. Last month, Brown's public defender in the case questioned Brown's mental capacity and whether he could proceed. Judge Roy Wiggins appointed a forensic evaluation. The lunatic remained out. The court paperwork says that he's homeless. So here you go. Now, two things here. One, it's this, what they say is homeless. He's not homeless. He's a mentally ill patient that belongs in a rubber room. This is one of the reasons why, too, you need to bring back the insane asylums. But instead, now they know, this guy thinks that the hospital gave him man-made material that's controlling what he eats, when he walks, and when he talks. It's almost like David Berkowitz saying that the dogs were telling him to kill people. This guy is mentally ill, and the judge just releases this guy, no cash bail, back out into the streets to walk around next to your family, to get on a train with your family, and he ends up murdering this 23-year-old girl who came here to escape a war. She came here to get away from the war, murdered on a train in the United States by a guy who should have been locked away years ago. This guy shouldn't be around the public. And these are the people that you see constantly. You see them in the train stations. You see them and I constantly talk about Penn Station in Newark, New Jersey. They're loaded with guys just like Decarlos Brown. They're dime a dozen. You see them no matter what time of the day. They're walking around and they could snap at any second. They don't belong out there. They belong in a padded cell, away from the public. But that's not what they do. They let them right back out on the streets. Why? Because they're not walking around with them. They're not taking the train with them. So they could care less. Now, here's my other point of this. Yes, we need to end the no cash bail, cashless bail. That's Trump doing that. Right, 100% agree. The other thing we need to do is the judge, where in this case, Teresa Stokes, the judges need to be held accountable. When they're going to allow people like this woman had to speak to this guy, and if she didn't realize he was messed up in the head, she should be disbarred. She knew. There's no way you don't get this far and not be able to tell people's personalities. She had to know that the guy standing before her was a lunatic. But despite knowing that, she allowed this guy back out on the streets. And this doesn't just happen once or twice. This happens thousands of times in this country. It happens every day. So she lets this guy back out. Now, why Here's the thing. You've heard a lot recently about how the question has come up, should parents be held responsible for their kids that commit crimes, right? We've seen that here in Jersey. Like if a young kid commits a crime, kills somebody, should the parents be held responsible? And that's a debate that's been going back and forth, especially here, I know, in Jersey. My addition to this would be we should hold the judges accountable for the people that they allow back out onto the street. Now, if it's just a one-off thing or, something that's, I'm saying a repeat offender, a guy like this with a career criminal history, if you are going to sign off that this guy doesn't have to pay any cash or whatsoever, and you're going to let him back out into the public, you have to sign the waiver as a judge that you're responsible. By letting this guy out, you're confident that this guy's not going to harm the public. You have to sign the paper. So if this guy commits a violent act, you're held responsible for it, whether that be aiding in the crime or whether that be disbarment, and you lose the robe or the judge, whatever they call it. You're out. You're no longer allowed to be a judge or a lawyer in the country. You have to sign that paper. So if Decarlos Brown stood before this woman and she says, well, this guy's a lunatic, he's probably going to be violent, but we'll let him back out on the street. If she had to sign a document that said, if this guy commits a crime violently against somebody, I lose my job because I'm vouching that this guy is safe for society. And if judges were held accountable in that way, the way we're saying parents should be held responsible for their kids, then you would see far less of these people roaming the streets. They would never let them back out. If it was their life on the line, their job on the line, they would never do it. They would never let these people back out on the streets. Yet they're doing it because there's no consequences for them. It's too bad. Do you think that Teresa Stokes is mourning today that this poor young 23-year-old girl was murdered by a guy she let out without even having to pay any bail? No. She'll be doing the same thing tomorrow for some other schmuck, some other lunatic, and letting him back out into the neighborhood because there's no punishment for her. But we're letting these people back out into our communities, and it's got to stop. And the cashless bail is a way to stop it. This guy's a homeless dude, right? He's poor. He wouldn't be able to afford to pay for the cash. So keep him in prison. Keep him away from but that's not a solution. They can't keep them in jail forever. You got to open up these insane asylums again. You got to do it. You have to open up these mental clinics or whatever they call them. We're building these Alcatrazes and alligator Alcatrazes. We have got to build the psych wards back. And I don't know if we're doing that at a fast enough pace. I don't know what the story is with that. But these homeless people that we're seeing on the streets, they are not homeless. They are drug addicted and mentally ill, sometimes both. They are mentally ill that are self-medicating with drugs. They got to get off the streets. So you got to put them in a clinic. You got to put them in a padded cell. I don't care what has to happen, but they cannot be around the population. I'm tired of seeing these stories. And like I said, you would think because this was a Ukrainian refugee, a woman who came from Ukraine to get away. Where is the press? Why don't they care about this? And we all know the answer why. Now, if it was a guy in a Trump hat that murdered her, it'd be the front page story. But it's not. It's a black suspect in and out of prison, lunatic roaming the streets. They don't care about it at all. And I'm sick and tired of that.